Hi, I'm Beth. Welcome to today's yoga practice. This is yin yoga with a blanket. So we'll be using a blanket for all of the yin postures. Any blanket will do. It's best if it's kind of a firm blanket, or you can use several stacks of towels. For most things, you could probably use a big pillow as well. We're going to be targeting various aspects of the spine as well as a little bit of the hips. So let's get right into it. Have your blanket in a rectangular blanket fold. You may want to adjust. Place it toward the top of the mat. We're going to come down for a Sphinx pose. So the blanket is going to be supporting our torso. And you'll see I left my socks on here. This is a cozy practice, so feel free to leave your socks on. So what we want is the blanket somewhere supporting the rib cage. Now, as I come down, I'm noticing that this is not as much support as I would like. So I'm going to simply take my blanket and double it so it's a bit of a fatter rectangle. And then I'll come back down. Oh, that's better. So the blanket is hitting me a little bit above my belly button, right in that area, supporting my ribs. And then you have various options for the arms. You can place them in a more traditional Sphinx with the forearms flat. You can take your hands to your forearms and grasp your elbows. In fact, this feels good for today, so I think I'm going to stay here. Now, in yin postures, we stay in each posture for a period of time in order to feel some sensation build in the target area. So Sphinx is a back bend, which means we're stretching the front of the body. I do feel a bit of compression here in my lower back. That's okay as long as it's not a sharp, stinging sensation, as long as it's a doable sense of compression. If there is anything that is uncomfortable, that's where you need to adjust. And in yin, you can adjust every single body limb as long as you're addressing the target area. So one thing I can do is take my legs a little bit longer and wider. So I tuck my toes to release the low back issue and take my legs a little bit wider. And in fact, that feels a little better for me. It helped my pelvis, so the front parts of my hip bones, to settle more toward the floor. So I can focus on this opening across the chest. Now, if I'm not getting enough sensation, enough opening across the front body, I can adjust that as well. I can move my arms wider. I can also press into my hands and come up from Sphinx to seal pose. That feels pretty good for me today, so I'll stay here as I hold the pose a little longer. Now, the parts of your body that are not working in the pose, you can do whatever you want with them. So my head does not have to be a part of this pose. If I want, I can let my chin soften toward my chest, hang my head. So yin postures can be held for various lengths of time. Usually about 2 minutes is the minimum. It can be up to 5-10 minutes, even longer if you're targeting a particular area and you're comfortable in the pose. We'll be staying in most of our poses for about 3 to 4 minutes. Let's hold this pose just a little bit longer. Now, if you're in a posture that was initially comfortable and initially gave you the Goldilocks amount, the right amount of stretch, but then over time, the sensation builds to a point where it's uncomfortable, you can adjust. So if I'm here in seal pose and I'm finding too much pressure on my hands or too intense of a stretch, I can come back down to Sphinx pose for the last part of my hold. We focus on our breath while holding. So let's breathe in and out about 3 more cycles. As we move out of the yin posture, we move slowly because we have intensely stretched. So you can take your hands and slowly push yourself up to seated, or you can roll onto your side to face me. We're going into a side lying posture next. So if you have the blanket in this relatively thick rectangle, that might be a good place to stay. You might even want it in a little bit more of a roll. I know that I like a thicker roll in this posture, so I'm going to double mine up again, triple. And we'll lie so that the blanket is under our ribs again, but this time more on the side. Now, where along the rib cage is a really adjustable, you might have it closer to your armpit, further down toward your waist. That's really up to you. And one of the things I like about yin is that it's so adjustable. So we're going to come down, find a place to try it, and then we'll stagger the legs just for a little bit more ease here. So top leg comes forward, bottom leg is under you or a little bit behind. The bottom arm is going to go toward the front. Now you can adjust it under your head or in another position if that works better for you. And then I'm going to start to relax my head down toward the mat. It's not going to touch. This is comfortable for me. It's providing me with some stretch along the side of the neck. If it's not comfortable for you, you can support your head in your hands, or you can put another blanket or a pillow or even a yoga block under your head. And you might be able to tell that the target of our stretch is the whole side body here. So with this blanket up pretty high into my armpit, I'm feeling it mainly in my neck, but not so much in my side body. If I want more sensation in my side body, one thing I can do is reach my arm overhead. That does change it for me, but I'm also going to try to scooch myself a little bit more up so the blanket is more under my mid ribs. That you can see that allows my head to more easily touch the floor. And then I'll try putting my arm. I like this position better for today. I'm getting more of an opening of those side breathing muscles, the intercostals. You might find you prefer different position on different days, depending on how your body feels, what you're trying to target on any particular day, any particular time. I really love these side body openings, because I think that this is a direction that we don't move our spine in quite as much naturally. So to me, it feels really good to stretch out. You can think of this as a side banana pose. And once you find your position, there's nothing more to do. You relax the parts of your body that are not stretching. So I can wiggle my toes, make sure my feet aren't gripping or my feet are relaxed. Same with my palms. This hand on top can be pretty free, pretty loose. I can tune in and check in with my breathing. Make sure my access to breath is smooth and even. We have to do the other side, so let's spend about another 30 seconds in this side of this pose. Now when we get ready to move, you can simply roll over to your other side so that your back is to me. I'm going to scooch around so that I still can face you when I switch to the other side. All right, let's take one more full breath here. Feeling the breath nourish your body. Fully exhaling. As you transition to the other side, it can be nice to move with as minimal effort as possible. So as I said, you can simply roll to the other side. I'm going to move my props around. When you start to come down to the other side, keep in mind that it may feel very different. So you might need to adjust the width of your prop as you come to lying. Give yourself that courtesy, that respect of figuring out what you need on each individual side. I'm going to stagger my legs again. If this isn't a comfortable position for you, of course you can take some other position with the legs. And I just have my arm, that provides more support for your head. You can absolutely do that. I like the little bit of additional stretch on my neck, so I like to let my head come to the ground. And I can feel pretty immediately that this feels like a good position for me. I can feel that side bend in this area. And then by adding the arm overhead, I do intensify that stretch a bit. So that's an option if you'd like it. And remember, once you find that position, I use the term Goldilocks, so not too much, not too little. Your own best pose for today. And you have the opportunity to relax into it. Yin is that combination of finding your edge in the area that's being targeted, and then relaxing, releasing with the other areas of the body. It's an opportunity to take your attention inside. So to engage in mindful attention and bringing your awareness to your bodily sensations and any other impact on your body, your energy, your emotions, your thoughts. If it helps you to go inside, you can close your eyes. Keeping the eyes open is a perfectly fine option as well. You can soften your eyes. Direct your attention internal, even as you're aware of external stimulation like my voice, other sounds or lights in the room that you're in. Let's take about 3 more breaths on this side. With your last inhale, exhale cycle, can you let your body release even a bit more, even as you're getting ready to shift and to move? And then do start that transition process for yourself, helping yourself up. And we'll come to a seated position. Here's where we're going to add in our first little bit of hips. I'm going to sit to the side, and I brought my blanket to one side. Let's stretch both legs out long for a moment. We're going to take a half shoelace position, and shoelace means that we're going to take one leg across the body to get some internal rotation at the hips. So we're doing adduction. Now I'm crossing this leg over. So shoelace is the foot somewhere behind the outer hip area. And this is really adjustable, so it can be a tighter shoelace or a looser shoelace, wherever you'd like. The idea is feeling that in the outer hip of the leg that's crossed over. And once you find a position where you can use your blanket here, is to help you stay in that position. So I'm going to scooch the blanket up underneath my leg. You'll see it even more when I go to the other side. And then I don't have to put a lot of effort in. Once I have the blanket supporting my position, I can really relax. I can relax the upper body. Just as we did in Sphinx pose, if I'd like, I can let my chin sink toward my chest so I don't have to hold up my head. In fact, you can let the whole upper body soften if you'd like. You do not have to stay really upright in this posture. With that sensation in the area of the outer hips, the glutes, there also might be some compression on the inner, and that means it's parts of your body, your muscles, your bones, your tendons, pressing against each other, or here you've got your legs squeezed together a bit. Those parts might be pressing. That's what compression is that sense of how our bodies are shaped, preventing us from moving more. We all feel it at different spots. And it's okay to feel some of that compression, again, as long as it's not painful, it's not so uncomfortable that you can't stay in your target place in the pose. If that is the case for you, that's your cue to adjust. Probably already got the sense that yin is a pretty mindful practice. As we stay here in the postures for a bit of time, we quiet our bodies become still, and we start to allow our minds to become quiet as well. All right, let's take 2 to 3 more breaths on this side. You can remove your prop from the support it was providing. Stretch out your legs for a moment. You might shake them a little bit, windshield wiper them long, or even just stay here and notice what's going on in your body. Notice the change in sensation from side to side. We'll move into the second side. Absolutely feel free to use your arm to help you get your leg into a position. Now here's where you can see that a little bit better. So instead of adducting, taking my leg away and taking it externally rotating, I'm adducting, ADD, so that my leg comes more toward the center of my body and looking for the stretch in my hip. It can be crossed over more of a 90-degree angle, or your heel can come more close to the outer hip on the other side. Finding a position where you get that stretch, again, somewhere around the IT band, the glutes, the outer hip, the hip flexors. There's lots of muscles there, so you can adjust and find the spot for you. And when you find it, you can even lean a little bit to that side to get the blanket underneath you and help you support that. So here the blanket is really helping me stay in position. So I don't have to overly clench the muscles. I'm looking to actually disengage the larger muscle groups and stretch some of the fascia, some of the connecting tissue. Those are really the areas that we're trying to target in yin. I can hold with my hands too, or relax my hands. That's sort of your choice here. Remember to turn your attention internally. Turn your focus to the breath. Start to experience any shaking in the muscles. That could be a sign that you're overexerting, and you might just want to move around a little bit. I noticed that in my bottom leg, so I'm going to let my bottom leg become a little more floppy. Apparently I was gripping some with that leg. And let's stay here about 2 to 3 more breaths. After this, we're going to be going all the way down to the floor, down to our backs for our last few poses. Okay, start to come out. You can move your prop, help your leg out. Just take a little moment in stillness. So you feel the energy. You might want to put your hands behind you, release back into your hands a little bit. So for the poses on the floor, we're going to once again have our blankets in the rectangle. So this is a pretty low rectangle. You'll see that's maybe when pushed only about 1 inch. I'm going to use the doubled over version here. Now these are some poses that sometimes we would use a block with. A blanket gives us a little bit of a softer landing point and is more adjustable. So I'm going to use this relatively fat rectangle and place it toward the bottom of my mat. So this is now the bottom of my mat. I'm actually going to sit right on it and lie back from here. Once again, you might have to adjust, but I want the bottom of my tailbone to be supported by the blanket. And of course, once you get down, you might find yourself doing a little bit of adjusting here. Now you can come back up and readjust if needed. So you can test this by first of all lying with your feet flat on the floor, knees bent. See if it's comfortable here. And then we'll draw the knees in toward the chest and see if that's still comfortable. The idea is the very tip of your tailbone is supported, your lower back is moving toward the ground, your lower ribs are toward the ground. There might still be the little bit of the natural curve, but you're getting a little bit of, this is a forward fold in our spine. We started with a back bend, we did some side stretching. This is a forward fold. Now you can stay right here with knees in. You can take knees wider. That moves more the stretch to the inner thighs. Now this is an abduction and an external rotation of the legs. And then option for happy baby pose. So a few different versions of this. You can hold here on the legs, the side of the legs, behind the knees. You can lift your feet up to the ceiling. Hopefully with that little bit of support under your tailbone, this process is a little easier. And then you can either keep your hands here, or if you can comfortably reach your feet. I'm just about there with my toes. I can strain a little to the size of my feet, but my toes today are more comfortable, so I'm going to stay there. You can reach for your feet. But I don't want to do this at the cost of overly bending my head, neck, and starting to get scrunchy. So wherever you reach for, that's really just to kind of help hold your legs in place. You can also use a strap here if you want to grab another prop. And remember, holding right here works perfectly well. In fact, you might feel like by holding here, you actually get a little bit more stretch in the areas we're targeting, which is mainly the hips. Hips and also the inner part of the groin. You'll probably need a little bit of effort in your legs to hold them in this position. In addition, maybe your arms are helping to hold you. You can still wiggle your feet, let them be relaxed. They don't have to be pointed or flexed. They can Sort of just be floppy, let them relax wherever they naturally go. Maybe you feel a little bit more tension or compression building in this pose. Let's hold for a few more breath cycles. If your feet are still in the air, you might even let the feet relax. Just concentrate on the hips, the inner thighs for the last few breaths. Bring your knees together, set them back down on the ground. I just adjusted my blanket a little bit more toward my head to give me a little more support. We're going to keep the blanket in this exact same position to do a twist. I'm going to twist to you to start. So what I'm going to do is actually slide over to my opposite side away from you to give my hips a little bit more room on the blanket as I move into the twist. You have options for the twist. You can extend the leg of the side that you're twisting to, bend the opposite knee, and take this knee over. It doesn't have to touch the floor. In fact, it probably won't. Or I'm going to do a double knee twist today where I take both knees into approximately a chair position and then start to lower both knees to the side. Now I'm going to turn so that my knees do come to the ground. And I feel a little bit of gravity helping move my knees in that direction as I have the hips elevated. Now, if the floor feels really far, especially with having the blanket under the hips, you can take the blanket out from under the hips, or you can put support under the knees or both. Slowly, I'm going to start to let my opposite shoulder move back toward the ground. It's not going to come down because of this elevation. Moving back in that direction, and I can turn my head to the ceiling or the opposite way. Helps to move me a little bit more around the thoracic spine, this area of the spine around the ribs. We're not going to be here very long. This can be a fairly intense twist. I'm just staying here for a few breaths to start to move our spine in the one direction we have not moved it in yet, which is twist. We've done a forward fold, which we just did in Happy Baby. We opened with a back bend in Sphinx. We did lateral or a side banana. And now this is our twisting movement. And you might still feel some work in those outer hips, some stretch there. All right, let's take one more breath here. Exhale completely. And then you may want to use your hands, opening one leg at a time. Help yourself back to center. Take a moment with your feet down to adjust. And then if you want to make space like I just did, you'll scoot your hips to the side of the blanket. So maybe moving them a little closer to me. If you're doing a double knee twist, lift both knees over your hips. And then start to lower them to the floor. Coming all the way down to the floor so you can rest your knees if that's comfortable. And you can see on this side how gravity and the blanket are allowing my body just to kind of spill in that direction. And then if I like, I can open my chest a little bit more. I can open my arm to the opposite direction of my legs. And this twist, I like my head more up toward the ceiling. You can also turn it opposite direction of the knees. For me, that's just feeling a little more awkward today. It's not uncomfortable. But I have the choice, right? You have the choice of where you want to place your limbs as you do these poses. . 'Cause Draw your attention to the target areas. Notice sensations wherever you feel them around your spine and your hips. And let your awareness linger there as we take in one more full breath cycle. Start to roll back, one leg at a time, helping yourself up as needed, readjusting yourself in center so that your hips are once more supported on the blanket. For our last pose, you can stay here in constructive rest and you can let the knees rest toward each other. Again, this is a little bit of adduction for the hips, but really mild here. Or if you want to target the front of the thighs, the front part of the hip flexors a little bit more, you can do this version of a supported bridge where you stretch both legs out straight. So we have our hips elevated on the blanket, that's the supported part. And then we just let our legs rest out long. I can feel this providing a bit of release on the front of my hip flexors. The hip flexors flex the hips, so they bend your leg right here. So when we're seated in a chair, that's how we are all day, right? We are engaging those muscles. It can feel nice to release them in this pose. Arms can be out by your side in more the traditional Shavasana position. Or you might like your arms in a cactus shape. Maybe stretch them overhead for a longer body stretch. I think I prefer down by my side for today. Resting on your body is another nice option, making that connection with how your body feels. Encouraging your body to rest and release. And depending on where you have your hands, if they are in your body, maybe making that mind-body connection, feeling the movement of the breath in the body. So this is going to be our rest pose for today. You can stay here as long as you like. I'm going to stay here with you for about 3 more breaths and then draw the practice to a close. If you'd like, remember, stay right here for longer, as long as you'd like, as long as this is a comfortable place that you can rest and release. You can also take the prop away and move into a more traditional Shavasana, stretching your legs out long, or perhaps bending your knees. If you're getting up with me, I'd recommend bending your knees first so your feet come back to the floor. Start to roll to the side. You can slide your hips off the blanket and start to transition up to seated if you're coming back up to seated with me. So that was our yin practice for today. I would love to know what you think with your comments below. Let me know if you enjoyed it. If you like yin, I have done a few other yin practices of different varieties. Check them out up here. If you want to see what else I have to offer, check out all of my mindful yoga practices here. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. Do subscribe to my channel if it's something that you enjoy and you want to get notifications of when I post something new. Have a great rest of your day.